Hello. I stopped this morning because I hadn't printed the rest of this or the further chapters. Bliss After Life. I'm now at chapter 100. It is a story about a reincarnation which I started writing in 2006 and over the years finished it 2017. So lots of gaps in between, but I've decided to read it aloud. It's not published yet, but it's a work of love, and it's turning into a bit of a Mills and Boons, a sci-fi Mills and Boons. Write yourself into a good mood, I guess. Must have been whenever I wrote it. Chapter 100. At the refuge. Anna had woken up very early and sat in the kitchen, watching the garden in the grey light. Just about to become a new day, she thought. Her parents had arrived last night, and she had felt so emotional greeting them at the local station. Her dad had insisted on taking the train to get to Wimbledon, and that's where she had been waiting for them. She was so happy to see them and relieved the moment had finally arrived. The first few weeks of the new year had been busy. The police had come just after the new year had started. She had reported all that had happened after Susan convinced her that it was important to make sure these practices are reported and stopped. And although she hated the idea of telling them of her foolishness, she had agreed and reported it. She did not remember much about the street or the house, and she was still amazed that she found her way to the refuge when she had left it. Anyway, they had found the place and busted the operation. She smiled. It had not been much of an organization, and Vladimir was back in Russia along with the two girls. Susan had offered her a place here and had asked if she would help. Susan had offered her a place here and had asked her if she would help with the refuge and sort of stay semi-permanent. Anna knew that she was keen to have help, and she had settled in so well that she was happy to do so. Her parents thought the refuge was wonderful, and they were happy she had found some work. She had not yet told them the story of her ending up here. She would in good time. At this moment she was glad all that was behind her, and she loved the idea of helping here. Susan had been very pleased with her, settling the 4 new arrivals, and Anna enjoyed running the place when Susan had been away. She started to prepare the table for breakfast. Her parents would join them, and she was thinking that things had worked out very well. Her parents were thrilled to stay in such a lovely, big house. It was much quieter now than it had been when Anna came here first. This would soon change, I think, Susan had said. It generally does, and she was looking forward to taking a part in the running of the refuge. Having needed it herself so badly last year, she realized that she had left her ambitions of the high life in the casino far behind. What mysterious ways the universe works, she thought. Her mum was excited about everything. It was so fun to hear her dad explaining things, but often he was describing the England of the 1960s. He was so eager to get out and about, and was making plans for the two of them to explore London. Show his wife where he grew up. She thought it was odd that he never came back here after settling in St. Petersburg, but he was always so busy, he said. They didn't have the money, and he loved where they lived. But he was over the moon to come and wanted to know how much about her plans and what she had been up to. Susan was great. There had been much to talk about anyway, and she always managed to steer the conversation back to her mum and dad. She was glad they had no idea what really went on and what she had been up to. She had put the radio on and heard a song which had memories flooding back. Something stupid. Ah, yeah, she remembered her parents dancing along to this song in their living room. They had such a great marriage. So different they were. Susan said her dad looked like a professor with his round glasses and goatee beard. Her mum was a little plump but vivacious and loved to laugh. To her they seemed to occupy 2 different ends of a stick. but they seemed to balance beautifully in the middle. Her thoughts strayed to Peter. He had sent her a text yesterday, had remembered that her parents were due to arrive and wished her a happy time. She had talked to him on the phone after the party, when the police was here, etc. It was lucky she had answered when he rang. Susan had still been at her sister's, and they ended up 3 hours on the phone. She did not want a relationship, really, and the way he was talking, she knew that he wanted to finish his studies, wanted to start his own design company, full of ambitions and passionate about architecture. But ever since they took New Year's Eve, she felt that they had something. But she was not sure what it was. He seemed to feel the same about her. She was glad he was there in her life. It had been nice to talk. When Susan was away and the police came, that really unsettled her. But sitting here now with her parents upstairs preparing breakfast for 8, she felt at peace. Susan could hear Anna in the kitchen. She got herself ready and bumped into Lidmilla in the corridor, who was also dressed and ready. "I love this house, Susan. It is so big and bright, and you have made all the rooms so lovely. Sorry, I had a look inside them. I think only the second floor has the 2 new young mums and their children. Is that right?" "Yes, Julia and little David and Patricia and Dottie. I can hear they have got up as well. Is Leon coming down for breakfast?" "He's not quite ready, but I thought I'd go on down. I think Anna got up early. I was lying awake looking at the lovely knitted bedspread and the beautiful colours. Anna said you had all worked hard to get it looking this way." They walked into the kitchen and Anna kissed her mum on her cheeks. "Oh, it smells lovely, Anushka. Did you bake rolls?" "Yes, I did. I got up so early and it's mainly waiting and kneading," she laughed. "Anna enjoys doing quite a few things we all benefit from." Susan put her arms around Anna. She had settled in very well, and I cannot wait for a warm roll out of the oven. "Ah, here comes little David. Good morning. Lydia and son." "Julia and son." She knelt down. "Do you like rolls which are still warm out of the oven, David?" "Yes, I do." David was laughing, ready for his breakfast. "Good morning." Patricia was right behind Julia and had Dottie by her hand. "Good morning, Patricia and Dottie. How are you today?" "It smells lovely in here. I like warm rolls too." Dottie was all smiles. It often amazed Susan how children can get used to drama, or what other people might call drama. Both women had similar histories: domestic abuse, needing to get out of a toxic relationship. Julia and Patricia had spent the evening before talking, and Susan was close to finding a solution for them. She had found a place, and they had already decided that they would happily share a flat with their children. Sometimes things work out lucky and quickly. "Come, sit down, Julia and Patricia. You 2 little ones, come here." Leon walked into the kitchen, which was by now bustling. "Good morning, everyone. I can smell rolls. Anushka, did you make them?" He took his daughter in his arms. It was obvious he was very pleased to see her. "Are you a teacher?" Little David had been studying Leon, and they all laughed. Leon really did look like an imagined professor, with his small round glasses and tweed jacket. He had a friendly face and smiled at David. "I was, for many years. But I'm retired now and very happy to be here in England, visiting my daughter." "You have come all the way from Russia to see her?" "We have come all the way from Russia to see her, David." They settled down for breakfast, and it seemed everyone was suddenly talking at the same time. It was past midday until Susan had time to sit down in the kitchen to check her phone and make herself a coffee. She had a text from David, who was due to arrive already around 2 p.m. She was pleased to see his message. She took her coffee to get changed. Anna was upstairs. Her parents had gone off into town. Her father was happy that he could show off his hometown to his wife. He liked the tube and the public transport. Moscow's metro has a system with colors, and Leon prided himself to finding all different ways to different places on public transport in London too, although the amazing-looking stations in Moscow's metros were more of a tourist attraction. Here in London it was all quite ordinary. "Anna, have some coffee if you like. I just made a pot, and there is some left." "Thanks, Susan, I shall. I'm just ready here. All looks nice." Julia and Patricia have gone off. They are looking at this place. Yes, and all going well. They will be moving on next week already. I wish it would always work so quickly. Patricia and little Dottie have been here before. Anyhow, I shall get changed now as David is coming. You will finally meet him. Put some music on, Anna. I feel like celebrating. Susan felt happy. It was rewarding when she was able to help so effectively and quickly. She was looking forward to showing David around this place. They had talked so much about the various people she had coming and going in the last 15 years. Anna went downstairs, poured herself a coffee and looked at the various CDs in the rack in the kitchen. Many artists and bands she had never heard of, and she just pressed play to hear the CD already in the stereo. Steve's voice and his guitar sounded around the kitchen. They had played it yesterday, she remembered now. Great! Leave it on, Anna. David and I have been talking about his record. The other day, he said he wanted to hear more of Steve's stuff. They were good friends back in the days. I'm so excited. Susan came down the stairs to join Anna in the kitchen. You look great, Susan. Anna thought she did look fantastic, not a day over 50, and the new outfit looked lovely. She looked happy, and that always took years of any age. Anna thought, Did I hear the doorbell? She smiled as it was loud enough to wake the dead. Susan rushed to the door, giving Anna a wink, and opened to let David in. Wow, Susan, this is some home. You always speak of the refuge, but I had no idea it was such a grand residence. God, you look lovely. So nice to see you. He embraced Susan and she felt the familiar rush. She pulled him along the corridor to introduce him to Anna, who was standing smiling in the doorway. David, this is Anna, our Russian resident and my deputy. Lovely to meet you finally, David. I've heard a lot about you. He did look handsome, Anna thought, in a sort of mature, manly way. He smelled good, too. And I have heard a little bit about you. Lovely to meet you, Anna. Isn't this an amazing residence? How on earth did you get to run this place, Susan? You never mentioned how this has all come about. You've been here for, 15 years, you say? It surely doesn't belong to the council. No, actually it belongs to me. Come in, sit down, and we have a coffee, and I will tell you the story of Mrs. Honora Roderick. Then I show you the whole place in peace. They sat down after pouring coffee and handing out biscuits. I met Honora over 17 years ago. I had been working as a social worker. Don't ask me how I slipped into that role, but that's another story. But I'd heard that she had been very kind to people. A couple of people I knew who'd come across my desk. She gave them shelter and I came to visit her. The house was even then well maintained. She had a way of helping people, and in turn they mowed her lawn, and she had them painting rooms, and she had them working in the vegetable garden. She was then already in her 80s. Her husband had passed away 10 years previously, and she lived here basically on her own, no children, and she enjoyed helping people. She was a philanthropist in many ways, quite wealthy still, although in the last couple of years of her life she had private carers coming in, which took quite a lot of her savings. But I rush ahead, because initially I met her through one of my clients. She had given him a room and a job, and I remember we sat in the kitchen talking for hours. She was so well-travelled and had lived an interesting life, still completely compos mentis, and quite grand in a way. She had a heart of gold, and when she broke her hip a couple of months after we met, I visited her quite often. I did not live far from here, and despite being almost 40 years my senior, we got on really well. She hated all the red tape and basically helped me, on and off, when I could not find shelter for one of my needy. She never asked for any money, and I made sure she was okay, never took in more than 1 or 2 of the cases I was dealing with, and where I knew she would not get any trouble. I lived not far from here in a small flat with Ben. We had split the family home, and I sometimes took Ben with me. Cooked her dinner occasionally. I was single and did not go out much. Sometimes we stayed the night, and we became really good friends. For over 2 years I used to come here quite regularly, and one day she told me that she was not very well. and she thought she might not have long to live. I remember saying that was rubbish, as she seemed just fine to me, but she insisted on wanting to discuss the future of the house with me, as she called it. It was really far too big a place for her to look after, and she had been struggling a bit, not so much with money, but the whole upkeep. However, she loved this place, and her happiest years here, she said, had been here, and she wanted it to remain a refuge for people who needed help from abuse, at least for some time. So she asked me if I wanted to move in and make it a proper place for people who needed a nice roof over their head. She felt it was a sanctuary and needed looking after properly. So we moved in and I rented my flat out. She signed the place over to me a few months after that, and we lived here with her in the house for another 2 years until she passed away. All the while I had started to make it an official refuge, and that is what it has been ever since. I sold my own flat a few years ago and bought my little house, which I love. Somehow this house, even though home from home, is my workplace. What a story! This must be worth a fortune. It looks fantastic, and you've kept it so well. I love the big entrance hall and the staircase. Come, show me around. I'm curious now. Of course, come along upstairs. I forget what a beautiful residence it really is sometimes. Look at the lovely stained glass. The light throws all the colors along the walls. The house was beautiful. The front door was stunning, colored glass, and so was the window on the landing leading up to the first floor, and another up leading to the second floor. A stained glass country scene with flowers and bright yellow sun in the corner, letting the sunlight in, scattering the colors over the carpet and walls. On this first floor we have 5 bedrooms of the first landing, all a good size, and 4 of them en suite. Ludmilla and Lena stay in this one. Have a look into the others. They will all still be free. There are 4 bedrooms downstairs, although they had converted this since Honora had passed. We did not need the 2 big parlors and made 4 smaller bedrooms out of them. I'll show you when we go back down. There's also a small annex with accommodation. Everything looks quite fresh because we decorated before Christmas. It had started to look a bit shabby. When the house is full, we spend no time on major stuff or anything. David was still marveling at the glass and the homely way the rooms looked, with their colorful bedspreads, pictures, telly in each of them. They turned to get up to the second floor, where Anna occupied a room, and they also made 4 rooms out of the previous 2 larger ones. Julia and Patricia were also on this floor. And up this small set of stairs is the attic. I have my room there. We try and keep it free just for me. She smiled, and they climbed up another set of stairs to a beautiful room at the top of the house. Gosh, it's beautiful, Susan. What a lovely sunny room. You can see far and wide from here. I know. Isn't it wonderful? This was all a bit of a mess when I moved in here. Honora never came up past the first floor in the last few years, but for me, this is my favorite place in the house. Look at the view. It overlooked most of the other houses around, and they could see the park and the common, the tops of trees, and everything looked quite far down. No buildings obstructing the view over the common. You made it very cozy. I love a roof space. And you have a bathroom up here and a little kitchen. I love the way it's all one large airy space. Yes, and thank goodness for that. When the house is full and busy, this up here is my hiding place and recovery area. I have an intercom for the front door and the kitchen. Look, we were lucky. I had a female electrician who needed a place to stay, and she did so much during the time she was here. I wish I had more like Veronica coming here. Anyway, what shall we do today, Dave? What shall we do today, David? What do you feel like? Let's go down. I show you the summer room and the garden, etc. Shall we go out for something to eat? She was standing at the window and could feel David standing right behind her. Goosebumps traveled up her arms, and then he embraced her. They gazed into each other's eyes. How long had it been that they had gazed into each other's eyes? I don't mind what I do, Susie Q, as long as I do it with you. And then he kissed her. Chapter 101. Faye and Ben. Tony and Melanie. Melanie was sitting in the garden. She was waiting for Tony to come down. The house had a communal garden, but she had her own little patch. The previous owner must have been an inspired gardener, because her little area was a sun trap and already had established plants. She was looking forward to spring and summer to see what would come up. It was a beautiful sunny morning, and although quite chilly, she thought she could smell spring in the air at this moment. There were daffodils starting to show and a few snowdrops, a bird singing. She had taken a chair out of the shed. Everyone in the house shared this shed, and it felt peaceful. "I'll feel happy here," she thought. "I'm really looking forward to meeting Tony's tribe." She smiled to herself. It all felt so right, and I'm completely in love with him. She heard him whistling, coming out of the back door into the garden. He paused to look at her, and they smiled at each other. "Isn't this just lovely?" Tony was carrying 2 mugs of coffee. They were due to meet Ben and Faye at Bliss Place, and had spent the previous evening talking about people in their respective families. "I'm so looking forward showing you my Ormie's old place. I think it will always be Bliss Place." He laughed about the pun. "It sounds so lovely, and what you told me about Ormie and what my Oma told me about her, I can't wait to see it, and how she lived, and meeting Ben and Faye. I can hardly contain myself." She clapped her hands like a child, and Tony couldn't help kiss her. She was so beautiful, sitting in the sun, looking all happy. "I'm so glad we ran into each other, Mel." He held her shoulders, kneeling at her feet. She took his hands and put them on either side of her face, keeping her hands over his. "I think we were always meant to meet, Tony. I have to be honest with you. I know we were meant to meet. And I marvel at the mysterious ways the universe works." She kissed him, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. Faye was tidying their bedroom. They had woken up early. It was a sunny morning with a view out of the big bedroom window. It had been impossible to stay in bed. Ben was in the shower, and she had made a juice for them. They might even have it on the balcony, she thought, although it might be colder than it looked. The flat was warm, and she kept finding herself just staring out of the window, with the sun glinting on the water, quiet music in the background, the baby gently moving inside her. She felt like doing nothing at all but just sit and stare. "This flat is so seductive." She heard the shower stop. "What do you mean seductive?" Ben came out of the bathroom, drying himself with one of Bliss' luxury bath towels. "Ha! Not in that way, Benny," she laughed. "No, I mean seductive in the way of seducing me to do nothing but sit, listen to music, stare out of the window. How did Bliss ever get anything done?" She often sat on the balcony. There is a sun umbrella somewhere. She used to write and was quite active on the computer in the last few years of her life. She thought it was a great way to communicate with friends and relatives, and often wished she'd had it years ago, although she mainly used it for writing emails. She was not of the Facebook generation, but I'm sure she would have read my blog if she had still been alive. Ben embraced Faye. She was definitely getting bigger all the time now. Her belly stuck out like a balloon, her frame so slim. She looked radiant to him. "Yeah, I wish that I could have met her." "She would have loved you, Faye. Isn't it great how the family is growing?" He patted her belly gently. "I can't wait for you to meet Melanie. Tony never had many girlfriends. I only remember 2, and both of them did not last very long." "How many more have you had, Benny?" "Off the baths, gentle persuasion, and son of Steve the blue-eyed music man." She laughed. They were both not of the jealous kind, and conversation of past relationship had all been done. Faye, mother of Lydia, daughter of healer and teacher, beauty of Guangzhou, and most adorable wife to be of Ben, the best lover in the world. 2 serious ones. And, well, I get ready and we have a coffee on the balcony. Yes, I had thought the same. Go, I get the juice as well. It felt warm on the balcony. It was quite large and could easily accommodate a table for 6 chairs. All but 2 were folded and leaned against the wall, along with a larger folding table. They had put the 2 chairs around a little French bistro-type table Bliss had painted pink years ago. There were quite a few pots, daffodils showing their green stems, and a couple of large containers. So faint. With an olive tree in each of them, and oh my goodness, this is so faint. On her balcony, olive tree, and started to look more colourful. Is your mum looking after the plants? There are quite a few, although it's hard to see what is coming out. It looks like there's going to be quite a lot, and I can see little green shoots coming up. Oh yes, when Omi was alive, she had a riot of colour up here every year. She used to garden a lot for many years, and although she wanted a flat and so that she didn't have to do so much work in her garden, she still never stopped doing little bits and pieces on this balcony. This is too faint, I can't read it. I have to stop and continue another time. Sorry.